Morning, everybody. Um, I know it's been a while since I've been on YouTube, but I had a compulsion to do this again, so I'm gonna do it. I wanted to talk about my roommate Matt and how um, he complains about his teacher, and it made me sad because he was complaining, and he was saying that he doesn't like his teacher because she she's one of those, how he described it, she's one of those, artistic, um like everything's my way or the highway kind of deal teachers, like it has to be creative and beautiful and new and exciting, but it should all be in black and white and should look like a newspaper. And I know it sounds, obviously it's an oxymoron, but um, that's what she told them. She told them that she wants their portfolios to be creative, and then he used colors that weren't the colors she suggested, which are light blue, white, gray, or black. Um, and she was like, "Oh, that doesn't look too nice, don't you think?" And that it made me upset. You really shouldn't be a teacher if you're gonna be a hypocrite. I and he complains all the time. He's like, I don't know how to be artistic. I don't know any of that. And I was absolutely baffled because he tells me about, he's an architect. He tells me about the buildings he creates, and he shows me them, and I asked to see them because they're really cool. And some of the stuff he makes is like gold etching on the stairs, and it's made of marble, and it's got like all, the floor to ceiling glass windows in a 13-story building. Like, it's incredible. It's very artistic, and architecture in itself is one of those, is a couple different, from a college student's perspective, majors, careers, occupations that offer this sort of experience where you are provided a broad set of very specific and detailed rules, concepts, and abstractions, usually from nature. Some of these careers borrow from one another, um, and um, those abstractions, like in architecture, um, the Greeks abstracted from the things they saw naturally, like trees became columns, and that's why those original Greek columns had the etching going down, like the grooves around the base. The stalk, I forget. It's been so long since I took an architecture class. Um, they abstracted from what they saw around them and created something else with the materials they had. And these ideas that they created and conceived thousands of years ago became the founding principles for this particular occupation, architecture. And he incorporates like all of these, I want to say, in in a perfect way. I know I'm not an architect, and I can't say that his work is perfect. I'm not qualified, but looking at it and having that knowledge about where architecture came from, I see the abstractions he's making on things that he sees around him and things that he enjoys. He likes the color teal a lot, and I see that repeating in some of his designs, and like on his portfolio he has that. Our coffee table, we painted teal. He picked teal, pick out the colors. And I like it. It's a good color, and it's really him. And it makes me so, I can't tell you how upset I am that an art teacher, someone who's supposed to guide students in a project oriented class, this is a portfolio class he's in, where he's supposed to be designing, not, following a rubric, designing a portfolio. And she corrects him all the time on that his portfolio doesn't look like what she expects. And I think it should be painfully obvious that it won't be what she expects, because that's not the point of the class. And clearly she misunderstood her expectations as a teacher and her expectations as a mentor and the work of her students. I was explaining to Matt last night how the LMS, the learning management system that our school uses, is called Canvas. A lot of other schools use it. I think it's great personally. I like it a lot. It's kind of like Facebook, but for the school and for homework. That's a very bad way of putting it, but helps you get the gist. It has this feature called Mastery Paths, and Canvas is organized into courses and groups. Groups are like clubs, courses are obviously the courses you take. And courses have assignments, quizzes, tests, labs, things like that. And Mastery Paths are a feature of courses. So with Mastery Paths, you would give everybody an assignment or a quiz usually, and that quiz would determine how proficient the student is at the subject going in. So if people like me in computer science, who are already somewhat proficient at an intermediate level, understand basic things, move at a faster pace, this is great because if I score high, this is not a graded exam, by the way, it doesn't have to be. If I score high in this exam, that would place me higher up on the mastery paths, which means I would get harder assignments as a result, and if I do well in those assignments, I get harder assignments. And let's say another student, doesn't matter who they are, let's say they're struggling to understand even like the most basic concepts, which at our point in our major shouldn't be happening, but I'm near the end of my bachelor's. Mastery paths, if a student entered a course and did bad on that initial placement exam, placement assignment, we'll call it, and then they did really well on the next assignment, it would bump them up. And mastery paths, unfortunately, the teacher would have to create a lot more work. Fortunately, for quizzes, it makes it easier. You just create a bank of questions and rate them in difficulty. And I know difficulty is subjective, and you can also use mastery paths with different supposed learning styles and have like visual questions, written questions, multiple choice questions, audio questions, things like that, practical questions. There are a lot of different ways that you can use this idea, this concept. And I think that having that would, not for the portfolio class, this is obviously a tangent, unrelated to what I was just talking about, but for other classes, I think it would be very beneficial for students to have the ability to progress at their own rate. Oh, that's why I said that. I was telling Matt that progress in education is, it's nonlinear. You can group together people to work towards education, but you can't, my teacher says all the time, and I hate it, but he's right, you can't learn someone else. You can only teach other people. So he says this to us all the time. He says, I can't learn you anything, I can only teach you things. And he's right, he's got a point. You have to learn with the information provided, but having mastery paths, which is these branching different paths of education where you would get harder or more difficult assignments based on your skill level, this is fair. Some of you might think that's not fair because the dumb kid gets easier assignments and you get harder ones. Well, it wouldn't quite be like that. It would be the not proficient student getting assignments that help them become proficient, and you would get assignments that harden your skills and maybe broaden them. And that progress that each student is making, I compared it to weightlifting. Let's say two people going to the gym, right? Let's say it's me and let's say we're in high school, right? I used to work out with my friends all the time. It's me and my friend Nick Dodson. I shouldn't have said his last name. Um, let's say it's me and Nick. Okay. So Nick could bench 250 minimum on a bad day. I could bench 45 on a good day. So let's say I went in to bench lift. Let's say I'm starting at 100. It's a very good day. I'm starting at 100. He's starting at 250. Let's say by the end of the day, I want to do a set of 5 with 50 extra pounds to push my limit and do something extra. And he wants to do the same. He wants to get to 300, so he's going to add 50 pounds too. And we both accomplished that. From a bystander's perspective, clearly he has done more work, right? Well, no, because subjectively, to each individual, that progress is exactly the same as it would be for the other person. I did as much work, I accomplished as much as he did, even though he's lifting more weight. Accomplishment versus like practical objective measurement is what interrupts and severely disheartens students from learning. And it's when we make grades a competition. And some people work great with that, and you can still compete, right? You could use, if that's what you want, you could, use mastery paths and try and get the hardest assignments possible. Not the hardest, but the most adept. And you could accomplish them, and you could push the teacher to make more work for you, which I did in one of my classes because I would just sit there and bust out the assignments while he was talking. And he was like, all right, I can't have you doing this. So he changed because you can go in and apparently change assignments per student. He gave me some really hard one he just pulled off the internet. Which was great because I spent the rest of the class doing it. And the rest of the night. It was something I hadn't tried to accomplish before. And I think that the benefit this would have for students everywhere, not just in college, but in high school, especially in high school, having the ability to, in high school you have a more personalized education, obviously, because it's paid for by, if you go to a public school, it's paid for by taxpayer dollars, and if you go to a good public school, they take care of you. Obviously, different people's experiences are subjective, but I had a very good experience in high school. I learned a lot. I wish I was encouraged and as curious as I was in high school and towards the beginning of college. I have definitely lost that that moxie, but that wasn't that funny. Yeah. So I think that's all I have to say on mastery paths and how they contribute to education, and why I think that that's pertinent for all teachers of all classes to use. And I would assuage anybody who happens to see this, if you're a computer science teacher or an architecture teacher, a teacher in any subject where you can implement this. Do it. Please. Even if you don't have the tools to do it, make different assignments, organize. There are a bunch of different tools you can use to organize things like that. I have a tool that I've been using for note keeping. It is one of my favorite things in the entire world. It's like so useful. It's called Notion. You can Google it, or you can go to the website notion.so. That's notion.so. It's a tool for organizing notes, information. You can write blog posts in it. You can write class notes. You can manage what you have to do for the day. You can integrate with a bunch of other things. It's targeted at computer science professionals, but it's got a ton of features that everybody could use. I'm trying to get my girlfriend to use it more. It is great. That and Roam Research are great. That's another great note-keeping tool. That's targeted more towards the layman and not a computer professional. Both are very helpful. I'll put links down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. You don't have to subscribe. I'm just glad you enjoyed this or didn't. It's good to see you again. Take care.